Are you aware that getting started and staying started are not the same thing? I contemplate what it would be like if I went to the auto dealer that cares for my car, my vehicle. I of course still have a black Mercedes that MonaVie acquired for me when I became a Black Diamond. And I wonder what I would feel like if I went to the Mercedes dealership with a problem and they opened up a workbook. When we went through your initial 10 steps to help you get started correctly, when you've helped others get started correctly, we used a workbook. That's entirely appropriate for someone just beginning. But I think that if I went to the Mercedes dealer and they pulled out a workbook, my enthusiasm would be low. What they pull out instead is a service manual. And what's the design and thought of that service manual? It's to identify the problem and then point to a solution, such as the exact same agenda that I have in creating the staying started components of this overall MVP package. The staying started manual, very simply, is to recognize that getting started and staying started are not the same thing, to be candidly aware that there will come times when we run into the wall. That's the truth. That's the way that it is. As I initially prepared this material, I thought of 2 or 3 different applications. There is, of course, the possibility that one goes through those initial 10 steps to get started correctly in his or her mind's eye, in your mind's eye, consider that you've done them correctly and yet never really broke tracks. That's certainly possible. One application then of the Staying Started Manual would be to have a new, fresh, differing view of those getting started steps. More frequently, however, is the following outcome. If one follows those getting started steps correctly, it's highly unusual and unlikely for one to not have some measure of success. But there does come a time where our initial success will flatten. Some people race through. Some people, you'll meet people who get involved and bang, they go to a gold executive. It's seemingly overnight. You say, well, how did that happen if it wasn't your experience? You'll meet some who seem to race straight through to Ruby. You'll meet some who seem to have raced even further than that in the compensation plan. Remember when you meet someone who started so quickly that they are again benefiting from one of those fundamentals that I find so precious, which make our industry superior to that of conventional business. They're getting paid again for some past success. That's what that's all about. Maybe you started quickly. Maybe you got paid from some past success. Maybe that low-hanging fruit that you were able to harvest from the tree was powerful and you grew quickly to a gold executive status or beyond. And suddenly your business stopped growing and it started getting smaller. Is that possible? Absolutely. I've lived that and experienced it myself. Maybe you went all the way to diamond and today you're getting paid at silver executive. Is that possible? Absolutely, that's possible. With me, what you get is a heavy dose of the truth, common reality. Getting started and staying started are not the same thing. Having a business that gets big for a season doesn't promise or assure you've got a business that is big and will stay that way forever. There will be not just one, but multiple times over the course of our development of the business where for whatever reason our growth stagnates or our growth turns into the opposite thereof. And for those very moments in time was the Staying Started Manual created. And so as we begin, I would simply tell you, if you find yourself at a moment of impasse, welcome to the club. You've just joined everybody else. Everybody has that moment of impasse. Some are willing to share with you those moments of travail, and others put on the happy face and pretend that it's always been easy. But as one who's been at this for a long, long time, I will tell you that if you find yourself at a moment of impasse, then you are in good company because everyone else has similarly found themselves at a point of impasse, most frequently multiple points of impasse as we continue to grow and develop, as we continue to refine our skill development, those 4 simple skills. What are they? Learning how to create and maintain a candidate list that stays in front of us, learning how to invite so the candidate gets to see the business, having learned how to invite, having some way that is eminently replicatable to present the business, and then being able to get new members started correctly in an institutionalized way. And that is specifically and exactly what the Getting Started material is. But now we must stay started. And so we revisit the steps 1 through 10. Revisiting step 1, how in the world could one re-enroll? Well, you cannot. So as we now contemplate step number 1 and try to look for the corrective behavior, we can't really correct an enrollment. We enrolled. Can't really do it wrong. And so now what we do is contemplate the why. I referenced in the Getting Started material that others, my peers in the industry, often spend much more time at the very outset identifying the why. I find the most constructive time to really visit this thought of why when we reach a moment of impasse. If you've reached a moment of impasse, then I invite you at step number 1 in Staying Started to reconsider why it is that you choose to be involved in this business. Think back to the way that your job, your career experience was that led you to the point of saying, I want to do something different. I think back to when I was a stockbroker. At my darkest moments in this industry as I was beginning, and I promise you this, my life experience was not easy in this business from the first hour. When I'd been at it for about 7 months, I felt like I had accomplished absolutely nothing. I felt like I was just turning and turning and turning my wheels. It seemed like others were racing to success ahead of me and that I was stuck in the mud. I felt like I had slowly drying concrete all around my feet, and it wasn't easy for me. And at that point, I had to reflect upon, why did I get involved in the business? I didn't like being a stockbroker, and I knew that being a stockbroker hadn't changed. I knew that it was the same things that I found uncomfortable, the things that I did not enjoy, they would still have been true if I re-engaged in that process. So that was it for me. It was very simple. For many of you, you may want to contemplate other possibilities. I've heard it said that one must have a why so big to make you cry. Well, I didn't. I was totally unemotional about it. I just didn't want to be a stockbroker anymore. And when after 7 months I found myself at a point of complete impasse, I then reflect, well, what would I do? What do I know how to do? If I don't continue on this path, what path awaits me? And it was the path back in the door of a major brokerage firm, and I didn't want to get on that path. And so that simple revisiting of my why was enough. But now I guess I will share with you a deeper why. While I didn't articulate it at the outset, there was something beneath that why that I didn't describe yet. And it goes beyond not wanting to be a stockbroker. Why is it that I do the things that I do and have done for so many years to have financial success? It's rooted much more deeply in me than I don't want to be a stockbroker. My real why is that I grew up in a place of not enough. That's where I was raised. I was raised in a place of not enough. I want a new pair of sneakers, Mom. How much do they cost? I want to go to the movie, Mom. How much does it cost? I want to go to the fair, Mom. How much does it cost? I want to ride the rides at the fair, Mom. How much does it cost? No matter the question, the response was always the same. How much does it cost? And I learned to hate that phrase. That was why I became a stockbroker, because I did not want to ever again ask the question of how much does it cost. I promised myself that I would get past the point of how much does it cost. And you know, for me, it actually became deeper than that. I came from a place of not enough, and I made a very, very faulty transition. I grew not enough to there's not enough into I'm not enough. And it took me so many years of personal growth and development to get past that. Well, in trying to soothe that pain, I initially became a stockbroker because that's where I could make enough money. Having found a way to make enough money to satisfy my needs, I then found myself at a point of complete dissatisfaction with the way that I was doing it. And so my surface why was I didn't want to be a stockbroker. But beneath that surface why, I don't want to ask how much it costs. When my children make a request of me, I want my response to be not based on whether or not I can afford it, but whether or not I think it's good for them. I don't want to make my vacation choices based on how much it costs. I don't want the choice of my residence to be predicated on how much it costs. I don't want the cars that I drive to be based on how much it costs. I don't want my charitable giving to be based upon some scarce situation that I find myself in. I want abundance. I want to be more happy more of the time. I have found that I can be more happy more of the time when I don't have to ask how much it costs. Now, the truth is that after years and years and years of personal growth and development, I have become convinced today that I could be happy without financial resources. I'm glad I don't have to know that right now. And I'm hoping that God doesn't impose that upon me. Having both had not enough and now having an abundance is better. I've just described to you my why. What is your task? What is your task here in step 1 of staying started? If you have arrived at a point of impasse, you've slammed into the wall or the ceiling, reflect upon why. Why did you decide to do this in the first place? And then put pen to paper. Articulate it, write it down. Write it down, look at it. Did that why change? The fact that you've run into the wall, did that change the why? Is that reason not still there, as big as ever? Is it maybe even bigger now than before? And does that why then give you that magic ingredient that separates those who really succeed from those who do not? And what is that magic ingredient? Willingness. What I've discovered is that my why was in fact big enough to create in me the willingness to identify what I was doing incorrectly or infrequently enough such that I was not accomplishing my goals. You see, there are people who are accomplishing exactly what you want in this business. There are people with life experiences similar to yours who are accomplishing what you want in this business. In my own case, a reevaluation, a recalibration of that why showed me that I must become willing to do things that I had not been willing to do up until that point, such that I could successfully get the key in the lock to success. What is your why? Write it down. Consider it. Evaluate it. That's step 1 in staying started.